Welcome back to the Always Reading Book Club. It is your girl Kiki Reader, and we are going to do a standalone today. Now, today's standalone comes from an author recommendation by Stacey Ann. Special thanks to you. I really appreciate it. The name of this is called The Close Up, and it's by Kennedy Ryan. We meet Takira Fletcher. It's starting in the past. She's in high school. She has a brother who's 13 months older than her, but because of how their birthdays fell, they're both seniors in high school. Now, her brother goes to a private school. He's really good in basketball, and so he got this full scholarship, whereas she goes to public school. So her and her mom have been cooking, mostly the mom, have been cooking most of the day because there's going to be this team dinner at the house with the basketball team. And so she goes upstairs to get her brother. His name's Cliff. And we find out that he is the number one guy on the team. He's expected to go to a high profile college, just do a year, and then get drafted into the league. So this is just at this point what is expected of him to do because apparently that's just how good he is. He tells her about this new guy on the team. Well, he's not necessarily new. He's been with the team the whole season, but he apparently has been on a bench. But his name is Nas. His real name is Nazareth, so Nas is short for that. And he's supposed to be Cliff's backup. Cliff is like, the guy is gunning for my spot, so I always gotta like keep him in place, let him know he'll never be me. So during this conversation, we find out that she's been working at a salon, any kind of way, sweeping, doing whatever she needs to do. So she wants to be a hairstylist, and so she knows what she wants to do. She's got a plan. She plans on going to community college, getting whatever classes she needs, and he's just kind of like, I don't want to say looks down at her, but kind of, because his goals are to, you know, go to the league, make major money. He's all like, you gonna be straight, everybody gonna be straight, X, Y, and Z. He wants to get out of Houston, all this type of stuff. I think for him, she's not dreaming big enough, right? But for her, this is the passion. She loves watching people and how they feel when they get their hair done, when they get that makeup, the confidence that comes with that for people. And she loves to see it. So it's an actual passion. So I'm like, that's awesome. That's totally cool. So he kind of gives her a little grief because he's like, you don't even come to the games, and she explains, well, that's why, because I got a job after school. So I'm like, that's what's up. She's doing what she needs to do, get as much experience some kind of way that she can, because she's determined she's going to get to that goal. Love it. He also made a little comment about her clothes because she had on like some fitted Gap jeans and like this crop shirt, and he's like, you wearing that? And she's like, yeah, I'm not gonna go put on more clothes just for your homeboys. If they can't keep themselves in check, that's not my problem. So they go downstairs. All the boys come. Later on, Nas comes, and she's the person that answers the door, and she's absolutely mesmerized by this boy. He is just absolutely stunning to her. And he seems to be just as mesmerized by her. They seem to be in this trance as they, look at each other. So her mother winds up coming up behind them, and they're Trinidadian as well. And her mother knows the baby, she says, oh, hey, baby, and asks how his mom's doing and stuff like that. And she admits she's kissed a few boys. She's even gone all the way a few times. But she has never felt anything that jolting with an individual by just a damn look. She's just never had that happen. And as he's walking away with her mom, he looks back and he seems to be just as affected. So then they wind up having a moment in the kitchen again, and then on the roof after the team takes pictures. Um, well, she took the pictures of the team at Cliff's request. So after the guys left, uh, Nas wound up leaving with them, but then he had to come back because he left, I think, a jacket. We then switch to Nas and we find out a little bit more information about him. He is the youngest. He has three older sisters. His dad died when he was in about fifth grade, I think they said, and he's kind of felt like the man of the house since then. He actually used to play football. He actually loved playing football. But what happened was he had this really crazy growth spurt. And so now he's like around like 6'6", 6'7". And so his coaches kind of sat him down and kind of were like, you might want to look at basketball. Because he was good at basketball as well. But they knew he needed some type of direction to go in, and that's the one he wound up going to. That's the reason he got this full scholarship to this private school. He transferred in, we find out. Nas has got a plan, right? He really wants to go to school, get a business degree, have something to fall back on. So he just doesn't want to go to school for 5 seconds so he can get in the league. Like if that happens, he's cool with it, but he definitely wants to try and get his degree out of it so he'll have something, to fall back on. And I'm like, that's good because her brother Cliff is just all about basketball. He lives and dies by it. Like that's what it is. There's no other option. He's going to the league and that's it. So I can see already where this is probably going to be a problem. Not saying you shouldn't have goals, right? I'm not saying that. You should. But I think because we've seen through time with so many things, especially in sports, and just how things in life in general can be so fickle, you kind of got to have, a backup plan. You really do. Nas and Kira, they're on the roof by themselves. They're having great conversation. She's talking about her dreams as well and want to be a stylist. And he tells her how awesome that is. And they've been up there for like a couple of hours having long conversation. And then he was like, "Oh, I got a game tomorrow, a big game tomorrow. Tomorrow's the championship game." And he's like, "I gotta go." And she wasn't ready for him to go. And so when he was about to walk away, he kissed her on the cheek, and she turned into him and kind of kissed the corner of his mouth. And that shit started something because then he winds up, grabbing on her breast. She opened her legs so he could put his hands between them. Then he went inside the pants, started fingering her. They're kissing each other. He even made her come. She had never done that with a guy, like come with a dude. She's only came by herself. So then they hear Cliff coming up the stairs, and he's calling for Takira. And so, they're straightening up real quick and trying to hide everything. Nas is trying to hide his erection. It's a whole mess. So, of course, Cliff is just kind of like, what you doing up here? He's ready to fight Nas. And Takira's like, he just came up here to get his jacket and we were just talking. And she says, unlike the rest of you, he can actually hold a conversation. Cliff is still suspicious. He's like, 2 hours. That's all you were doing was just talking? And she's like, yeah. So then Nas is like, he's pissed because it's like they were having this great moment and it got ruined. So before he leaves, he says to her, tomorrow after the game. And I want to say the writing with this is absolutely amazing. I really loved it. It really made those characters come to life for me the way this author wrote. You could feel through her words. She just did an amazing job. She really did. So, again, Stacey Ann, I appreciate it because you turned me on to a really good author. I really, really loved it. We fast forward 12 years, and our girl Takira is on a blind date. Someone she met on one of the dating websites. The guy does not look like what his profile pic showed. He says he's an artist. But we find out he paints things at children's parties and bar mitzvahs. So she thankfully gets a call from her best friend, Neva, and her friend's like, what you doing? She's like, oh, I'm on a date. And her friend's like, oh, I'm sorry, do you need me to fake something? And so she tells her about someone, a designer named Lotus, who is this up and coming designer, and they're having a show, some charity event, and they need someone to do um, hair and makeup. So we find out she's been doing this on pretty much an upscale level for a little while now. She's done, TV shows, she's done theater, movies, all kind of stuff. So she, of course, says yes. She's excited. She wants this. This is a great opportunity, and also it gives her a reason to possibly get out of this date. So when she hangs up, she's like, "Oh, I gotta go. It's an emergency." And then the guy asks, "Well, what's the emergency?" And she says, "Huh?" He says, "Well, you said it's an emergency, so what's the emergency?" And the girl goes, "Oh, my friend's having an appendectomy." And in her head, she's like, "Lord, forgive me." But I'm just kind of like, I can understand. I don't know. Because if you say you got an emergency, I don't know. I don't know. Because I would already be probably suspicious. I think because we've all seen that in movies or read it in books where people, have someone that can call them to get them out of it. So I don't know if I would even ask. I probably, oh, I hope everything's okay. And then that's it. But the guy said, he wanted to know what it was because I think he knew she was probably lying. That tickled me. Next day, Kira is now on the set of this charity event for, it's a place called Harbor House, which helps women that were involved in DV situations. And this show is, of course, to raise money for them. And we find out a couple of more things. Is it Neva? I'm gonna say Neva, and I could be wrong. If I am, I am. So Neva is her roommate. They're best friends. Um, she's actually an actress, and they met while Takira was living in New York. And this is where she done theater and things like that. And so her friend got this job for this movie that everyone was talking about called Desi Blue, I think. And she put her on and was like, got her the job for that movie. And so this is supposed to be a really big deal because it's by a director named Cannon. I forget the last name. And so, he's a big deal because he's up and coming. So it's really opened a lot of doors for her. So then we meet the designer. Her name's Lotus. She's married to a recently retired basketball player. Um, I forget his name, but it'll come to me later. um, so the guys from the team and his, different friends and stuff are going to be modeling in this show. And he has teammates from past and present. And so she's walking. She's about to stumble because she sees a woman with pink hair because it throws her a little and she stumbles. And guess who she falls into? A nice hard body of no one but the one and only Nas. We switch to Nas and we find out that he has checked on her over the years. They haven't spoken or seen each other since that night before that big championship game. We find out something happened. We don't fully know just yet. Um, but everything changed the course of how their lives were going to go. So we'll find out about that soon. What we do know is that Cliff has had a really rough time these past 12 years. Um, he's been on drugs on and off for the past few years. He's finally clean. Um, but apparently someone had done an expose on like failed, famed, high school stars. It was like this 2-hour thing. And when it came out, he went back to using. So now he's finally clean. She thanks Nas for not giving any type of a statement to the press, and he's just like, I would never do that, you know. She's like, I know, and I appreciate that. So he, of course, is checking her out just blatantly, you know, and 12 years has passed. She's older. She's still, to him, she's finer than ever. Um, he states, you know, he, in his head, he's thinking, you know, yeah, he's had his share of women, but he he doesn't like his stuff out in the public, of course, and he's never felt that again with someone. It hasn't happened. So another woman comes over. She was sent over there to get her makeup done, and she just had to put some powder on Nas and straighten up his hairline, because so his face wouldn't be shiny or whatever. And the woman says to Nas, hopefully, you know, I'll see you after the party, you know. Well, no, see you at the after party. She's like, if you want a little company, I'm available. And he says to her, I'm hoping to catch up with an old friend. So after the show, she does wind up going to the after party. She talks with Lotus and Iris, who I want to say is her and Lotus are related some kind of way, because Iris has the history with the DV, and they're having a conversation. We find out Lotus is thinking about doing a line of Carnival, and because Takira's Trinidadian, she's like, you know, oh my gosh, that would be like an amazing collab we could possibly do together. Would you be open to that? And she, of course, is. The women did notice Nas lit up, you know, when he saw her, so they know there's some history. Um, but she just says there's really no history. You know, met once, long time ago. He went to school with my brother. That's about all she says. She doesn't go into more detail. Um, she feels very torn because some of the greatest achievements that Nas has had over the years, those are the things that have sent Cliff spiraling into some of his worst benders. I think when Nas won his first championship in the league, Cliff went on a real bad bender. They couldn't find him for days. She wound up flying in to help her mom find him. Um, so just knowing that Cliff is basically, he hates this person and blames Nas for everything. She knows it's not the correct placement of anger, but because it's still her brother, she doesn't want to do something that could possibly make him spiral again. Because he's finally got clean, he's got a good job, you know, he's coaching high school basketball at her old public school. So she's just trying to stay away from Nas. So she's decided she's going to try and sneak out of this place. So she's going to go to the bathroom first. But guess who she runs into? Good old Nas. We switch back to Nas and we found out everything we needed to know about why they never got together. So the championship game happened. A ref made apparently a bad call, a really bad call according to Cliff. He's arguing with the ref. The other coach from the other team comes over and he punches the coach in the face. This was a televised game. Everybody saw it, and thus the downfall of him. So, of course, old boy Nas stepped up because this happened right before halftime. So, you know, he got ejected. Cliff did, from the game. That was it. So, Nas stepped up, gave the performance of his life, and so a bunch of scouts were at this game, and they had come there to see Cliff. But now they saw Nas, and now he got all those opportunities. He got that full ride scholarship, and he was more worried. Like before, he had said, you know, he wanted to make sure he got his business degree for free. His mom, you know, she was getting sicker. There were medical bills that were piling up, things like that, and so he just took advantage of his opportunities. But Cliff doesn't see it that way. He's made it about him. And I don't think they mammy helped. I don't. I think Everything was always about Cliff. You know, everything. It was always about keeping him happy. He's the golden kid, right? And so you a lot of times you do stuff like that, it creates a non-realistic reality for people, because you got to think, the mom's kissing up to him, right? The team apparently was kissing up to him. They didn't tell him when he was out of line, when he was wrong. So if you're right about everything, because people have made it that way for you, when someone tells you you're wrong and we're not budging, you're not going to be able to react to that in a normal way, because you've been conditioned to think that your way is how it's supposed to go. And therefore, he did the dumbest thing ever. His fault, completely his fault, but he's a narcissistic individual, so everything's about him. Thus the reason he blames Nas as the person that took all his opportunities. He don't want to look at the fact of what he did. He's just looking at the fact that I was supposed to have those things and this person took it away from me. But he took it away from himself. I don't like that Cliff. So we find out he called her after that game that night. Because remember, when they were on the roof, he said after the game he wanted to see her. So he called the house, and Cliff cursed him out, told him, don't you ever call here again, you stay away from my sister, all this type of crap. And then like a couple of weeks later, he called again, and her mom answered and said, oh, I just think it's best if you not call, and stay away from Takira as well. So again, you are part of the problem as well. So she didn't even know about that first phone call, but she knew about the second one. And I don't know, he has a little bit of survivor's remorse, right? Because the truth is, yeah, if he hadn't screwed up, those scouts wouldn't have saw me at that game. But at the same time, he couldn't have gone out there and performed like crap. He went out there and he performed at another level, which is what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to rise to the occasion. That's what he did. And for that, he deserved those opportunities, because he did what you're supposed to do. But again, he does have a little, survivor's remorse of, the fact that, okay, I got all this stuff great happening for me and his life went to shit. Even though it's based upon his choices, you know. He's responsible for himself. Um, we do find out that Cliff has 2 kids. He had a really good woman, but after that last I guess OD, she was out. She's like, nah, I got enough of this. So I think she's either married or she's with someone else, but she's doing fine. He's just now able to start coming around the kids. But Nas is like, he lets her know, like, he wants to see her. He asked her for like 5 minutes. He's like, can we just talk 5 minutes? So he took her downstairs, and this is where they have their whole conversation about everything. And she's like, did you not hear what I told you? Like, my brother OD'd after your championship game. Like, he took it horribly. Like, can you imagine how he would act if he knew about us, like, hooking up? You know what I mean? And they wind up kissing. Of course, it's electric, beyond electric. She runs out, pure guilt. She's like, I can't do this to my brother, so she leaves. So then after that, our boy Nas goes out to the pool, talks with Lotus and her husband, and Iris and her husband, because they're all friends. And they're doing a cruise. Well, not a cruise. I said that's so wrong. They're going to sail the Mediterranean Sea, honey, for Lotus's husband's 40th. Keenan, that's his name. I knew it was going to come to me soon. Her husband Keenan's 40th birthday, because he just retired not too long ago. So they're having this huge blowout. So it's going to be all couples. And now Nas has got an idea. And he says to Lotus, does my date have to know that she's my date? And I'm kind of like, okay, first of all, that sounds weird. But clearly he's trying to figure out a way to get to Kira there. So then we switch back to Kira, and poor girl has spent all night tortured because she wanted that man so bad. She hasn't gotten laid in a while. We find out she is bisexual. The last person that she says made her come a while back was this woman she met at a party. And she is just incredibly sexually frustrated. So she gets a call from her older sister, Janice. And Janice is married, lives in Chicago. Janice has a lot more of her Trinidadian accent because she lived there a little bit longer. So, of course, she's called checking on her sister, asks how the event went the night before. She tells her. And then she tells her who she saw. And she told her about the magical night before that championship game in high school, which she had never told her sister about. And her sister is like, oh my gosh, And her sister was like, yeah, it was bad. It did get really bad. It scared all of us, when that happened with him. She's like, but Nas don't have nothing to do with that. Cliff has suffered because of his choices. Just because he feels like Nas is taking everything from him doesn't mean that's not what happened. So her sister's like, I've never heard you talk this way about somebody, like, ever. And the fact that you should at least go on a date, give it a shot. Cliff doesn't have to know, to be honest. Kira's like, yeah, I know, but I would just hate to be the cause of him spiraling again. So she gets off the phone with her sister. She gets a call from Lotus. Lotus is calling to invite her on the Mediterranean trip. She, of course, is suspicious. Even though Lotus came up with a pretty good thing. She was like, it's a bunch of friends. I figure, we could maybe work on that carnival line and all this type of stuff. But she sees right through it. And Takira's just like, okay, cut the crap. What's going on? So she admits, okay, it's Nas. He wants you to come. I've seen the vibe with you two. And I knew it had to be some type of history. And she just, admits, she does admit about, there was this one night in high school. And Lola's like, listen, he doesn't pursue people. Like, we've never seen him like this. You clearly have an effect on him. And I can tell from the moment I saw you two bumping to each other that there was something there. She's like, just come. We're a fun group. Um, she's like, it was rough when her and her husband first got together because I guess her um, husband, his ex-wife, they were having, there were issues with the kid being used, all this kind of stuff. So she's like, sometimes difficult situations, we get in them, and it doesn't mean they're not worth it. She tells her, Iris, you saw how public it was with her issue with her last ex. People have things that happen in their life, but it shouldn't deter you from something that you clearly are very much interested in. There's an absolute vibe between the two of you. Why shouldn't you get to explore it? So she tells her she'll think about it, and Laura says, take all the time you need, but I need to know by Tuesday. And so Zakira's like, I knew I was going to like you. And so we also find out that her best friend, Neva, she's out of town with her Buchanan. So the director on that movie, they got together and they are, enjoying themselves. So she decides, you know what, let me go on this Mediterranean trip, great food, great ambiance, let me enjoy myself. We switch back to Nas. He's on the boat. He's talking to his homeboys. He tells them a little bit more backdrop. He asks them if they remember Cliff Fletcher, and they kind of go back and remember. He explains the situation with Takira, and they're just kind of like, she can't live for a brother. That's the first thing they say. That's not fair to her. And they're like, you know what? Listen, you got her here. This, Mediterranean cruising on the yacht is 2 weeks. It's a stepping stone. It's an opportunity. Just take advantage of the opportunity. And I like that. It kind of gives them a chance to kind of be in their own little world for a little bit. Yeah, they still have access to their phones and the outside world and things like that, but it gives them an opportunity to spend like honest like time with one another, and that's what they were denied back in the day, you know? We switch back to Takira. Um he sees her, he walks up to her, well, she actually winds up saying his name first when she sees him. She didn't anticipate on seeing him until like dinner. And so he comes in her room and she says, you sure did a lot just to see me again. She's like, you could have just asked me out. He says, I did, and you turned me down. She's like, well, I guess you like to get what you want. He says, I have, I do what I can. And again, this was a really great read. They really feed wonderfully off of each other. The raunchiness, the sexiness, all kind of stuff. It's really fun to read, and it's a short read. I think it was like maybe 125 pages. It wasn't long at all, so it's a great read. I really would recommend it. So of course they wind up kissing, and then he winds up fingering her. And at that point, girl is like she's ready to be bent over and fucked, but he doesn't let her. But he doesn't let her come on his fingers. He tastes her fingers. It's so erotic to her. And then he basically lets her know, like, I'm not going to let you come right now. He's like, later if you're a good girl. And then she tells him, she grabs his dick and she says, and you better not jack off or do anything else to this dick. I want everyone to know that I'm the one that's doing that to you. I say, now this is my type of convo. I like that. She was real and raw with it. So then he left out. Oh, I did forget to mention that she did say to him, like, this can only be like a 2-week fling. So that's the timeline that she's given it. So she gets a call from her friend Neve, I don't know how to say it. And of course, her friend is so excited for her. She's in Iceland with her boo Cannon. And she's like, girl, we got to come back here one day. It is absolutely stunning. And so she's happy for her friend. Her friend's like, you need to stop making yourself feel guilty about Cliff. Cliff is a grown ass man. Cliff needs to get in therapy and deal with his shit. He has no right to impede on your fucking fairy tale in your story. That's not fair. You deserve this, and I love that her friend wants her to be happy. You know, it's not well, I'm in a relationship, so I don't really want you to be happy right now. You got to kind of wait until I'm happy. Her friend is all about her being happy now and enjoying everything to the fullest, and it's beautiful. We found out that Neve actually came out there with her when her brother OD'd. They're closer than she is with her own sister, because Neve's sister apparently she's a lot, and a couple of times Kira has wanted to fight the girl, so they are super close. She tells her, your happiness is just as important as my own. And I thought that was absolutely beautiful. So she says, enjoy yourself. And she's like, okay, that's what I'm going to do it. She's like, don't put that timeline on it. You don't have to do that. If this is going to turn into something, you let it turn into something. Don't deny yourself because of your brother's misplaced bullshit. So we switch back to Nas, and he's at the table talking with Banner, who's his agent. She's been his agent since college. She's always looked out for him. They're great friends. He's friends with her husband. Everyone gets along really well. So Banner's kind of like, she's already looked to Takira, 'cause she's never seen him like this over someone. So she wanted to make sure that this wasn't like some opportunist type of a woman. So it wasn't really hard for her to link, but see the link between who she was and her brother and the past and how everything was kind of intertwined. She just tells him to be careful, and that's just pretty much it. Banner's actually pregnant. No one else was supposed to know, but her husband Jared spilled the beans earlier to the guys, and so they were supposed to act like they didn't know. So when she was about to eat shellfish, Jared runs over and grabs it like, you can't have that. So her girls, Iris and Lotus, are looking like, what do you mean? Why can't she have it? She's not allergic to that. And then clearly the guys are looking all off like, they don't know what's going on. So uh, she's like, you told, he's like, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to. So then everyone's excited. Takira comes in, he goes over to her, and she looks absolutely stunning. She has this nice low cut um, outfits, like low cut in the front and in the back. It's absolutely great. Shows off all her curves. And he had told her not to take off the panties that she had on while he was fingering her. And so she takes them and she puts them in his hand. And he's like, what are you doing? She's like, well, the outfit didn't really allow for me to wear underwear. So he puts it in his pocket. He is so incredibly hard. He's like, how am I going to get through this dinner? And she's just like, okay, introduce me to your friends. They go to dinner, have a great time, great food, great people, lots of high profile people are here. She's been around, high profile folks, but like everyone in this circle is accomplished. It's like family members and their lovers. It's just everybody's just awesome. And they're also very welcoming to her. So she's really enjoying herself. Eventually they wind up going to her room, and when they get out of the elevator, he tells her to run. So she runs, he catches her, takes her in her room. And he's like, did you really not wear panties? So she lifts up her dress just enough so he can kind of see, but not really be for sure. So then he gets on his knees, looks, and sees she's not wearing any panties. And she has a clit clamp. Apparently, it's something that when you take it off, it's like painful, but like all the blood rushes back, and it's supposed to be like this intense sensation. So he starts going down on her, eating her, licking her all around. Eventually, he takes it off, and he keeps he eats her pussy like crazily, and she's like, she's never had her pussy eaten that good. And she feels like satisfied with that, even though she does want more. But afterwards, he asks her, do you wear a scarf when you go to bed? She says yes. He's like, show me how you do it. So she put it on, and then he says, do you wash your face? And she says yes. He takes her to the bathroom, takes off her makeup with the wipes, and is very gentle with her. And he's like, I'm just going to take care of you. And then he gets in bed with her, and he tells her, Kira, baby, you can go to sleep. And it's like her body just knows something she doesn't, and she just goes to sleep. I thought that was sweet, like just wanting to care for her, probably noticing she's, it's her first day, she's jet lagged, probably she's tired. Like I just want to take care of her. I just thought that was really sweet. Next morning he wakes up, she's not in bed. He looks around, she's in the bathroom, and he peeks in, and she's like, what are you doing? I'm peeing. He's like, something I haven't seen, like I was just buried in it last night. And she's like, oh my gosh. Their banter is hilarious. It's fun, it's highly sexual, it's clever, it's great. So then he kisses her, and he tells her, now if it was number two, like I wouldn't be in here. And she's like, oh my gosh, that is so gross. So there's a knock on the door. He goes to the door. It's Lotus, and Lotus is looking like, am I in the right room? He's like, yeah, this is Takira's room. And she's like, oh well, I see you all had a great night. And she's telling him, how happy she, is to see him like this and everything. And everyone saw how he was watching Takira all night. It was really sweet. I was like, is it sweet or creepy? I don't know. It just depends on how you do it. So they're gonna go jet skiing. Takira comes up behind him. She's got a robe on now. And she's like, jet skis, yes, so about it. So everyone keeps popping up, and he's like, oh my gosh, like he's ready for them to go. So eventually everyone leaves. They're about to do a little something because he's super hard, but one of the guys there named August, he knocks on the door, and he's like, y'all can do that later. Come on, let's eat breakfast. Let's go do some jet skiing. So then she tells him, later, I promise. They go out on jet skis. When they come back to the boat, they're not in the room yet. They're just like in the stairway. So she drops to her knees, and he's like, what are you doing? She's like, oh my gosh, you don't even know when you're about to get a blowjob? He's like, what if someone sees? She says, I don't care if someone sees, because even if someone can't like walked up, I wouldn't stop sucking your dick. And he got totally turned on. Now it's in her, she normally wouldn't say something like that, but it's like they just kind of bring out something in each other. So, before she starts sucking him, she tells him like, I'm really good at giving like head. And so he's big, but she's a trooper. She sucks him off great. He's going crazy. He's like, I'm about to come. She's like, swallow. She took his dick out to say that to him. And he says, I want to come on your face. And she said, well, then come on my face. And he's like, are you sure? And she said, yes. And she described it as like this act of worship between the two of them. And she just wanted to obey. It was a moment. I'm like, well, alrighty then. Dude's kind of in a daze. After he comes on her face, he can't believe it just happened. They go back to the room, and she's like, well, you got to clean me up. So then they go get in the shower. He cleans her, and they say the sweetest things to each other. He says to her, like, this means something to me, you know, and she's like, it means something to me too. So after he washes her, dude's ready to go. So she goes, gets a condom. Then they have a nice hard fuck. And he was like fucking her hard. And at first he was like, can she take it? Is it too hard? And she says to him, harder. And she says, I don't want to be able to, I want to have trouble sitting for the next couple of days. And he just fucked her even harder. And brings her to, it brings him an absolute beast out of him. And he says, he doesn't even know where him saying to her, let me come on your face came from. Because again, that's not nothing he normally says. It's been a week. Takira's having a blast. It took her a couple days to get her walking back corrected. She had to get used to it. So she's helping Lotus with the Carnival inspired line. They're talking. They have real conversation. They talk about what happened with her brother, the reason for her and Nas, not really being together, how it could cause problems. Lotus, of course, is, it's not Nas's fault. She said, I know, but it's this, for my brother it is, and it just makes it really difficult. And Lotus is like, I hope you all can work it out. You two really are great with each other. You seem to really enjoy one another, and she says, just keep enjoying each other, and when you get to that bridge, you'll cross it. They have a little wine dancing session. Nas comes up behind her. He's like, you gonna teach me how to do that? And she's like, I cannot imagine a 6'7" ass man whining. And a little sadness comes across her face. He says, what's wrong? She doesn't say anything. She said she's okay, but she's thinking about the fact that there's 3 scenarios that can happen. She can continue to see Nas in secret. She can tell her brother what's going on, or she can stop seeing Nas. And all 3 of those just bring some form of sadness to her. We switch to Nas. They're getting ready to pack a bag to go on shore because they're having Keenan's party at this huge villa. Her bag starts buzzing. He's like, what's that? Come to find out, it's a vibrator. It's not the great one she loves, but she talks about her love of vibrators. They've always, you know, their job. They don't cheat on you. They don't snore. He says, well, I don't snore that. I only snore a little bit. She looked at him. He says, okay, I may snore a lot. But he's like, but I don't want any secrets between us, like none. So she tries to say, I thought this was just sex. He says, you know it's more than that. And she goes, I know. So he knows the situation with Cliff is gonna have to be faced, when they get back to the States. And he's just like, you know what, it's just gonna have to be done. He knows it's a lot harder on her because, that's her brother. But he's decided he's not gonna live without her anymore. Like, they've gone long enough without one another. It's just not an option to him at this point. He's like, nah, we just gonna have to deal with it, head on. And then he tells her to bring the vibrator. He's like, anything that makes you come is coming on the island with us. They go to this huge villa, have great food. They're gonna stay for a couple days. This place is like 9 bedrooms. It's huge. Everyone goes do their different things, and then him and Takira go for a walk. And he asked her what her goals were, because they had said something about with kids, and she says not right now. Like, she wants to hold off. She wants them, but she has goals. So she says she wants A-list clientele, that it's really hard for black makeup artists and things like that, and stylists. And what did she say? I think, was that it? I think that was her big thing. And then he says, "Is there any room for me?" And she's like, "It's not that I don't want you there. You know what I mean? It's really not that." And he tells her again, he's like, "Listen, I'm not letting you go. Can't do it." He's like, "I know it may seem really fast, but I feel like it's been 12 years in the making." He's like, "I always knew we'd find each other some type of way. I just didn't know um, that it would be the way it was." He's like, "But I paid attention to everything you did. Like when you were moving to the A, when you moved from the A to New York, when you say you're moving to California, I just felt like there was some type of way that we were going to wind up being in each other's lives. And then you literally fell into my arms at a fashion show." And he's like, "I just don't want to let you go." And he's like, "I know you and your brother are close. He's like, let me go ahead and tell you, I'm going to be back in Houston because the head coach is retiring." And he's like the all-time winningest coach in Texas history. And so they want all the guys to come back from that championship, different teams, but especially from that first championship team. And of course, he's like, no, she's like, they're memorializing the night that Cliff's life fell apart. But again, life is not about Cliff. You know, this man has accomplished something amazing, right? And these people want to come back and they want to honor him. He lost control. He loses control. If he fucks up, that's on him. Like, nobody should not talk about that night ever again because he was stupid. Learn how to own your shit. I don't know what else to tell. All we know is that Nas in his head is basically like, he knows the bullshit's been brewing for a long time, but the shit's got to get settled now. They've been enjoying their time. It's the night of the party. Um, he does what he does with her so well. He likes to take care of her, put lotion on her, just make everything as easy for her as he can. And he says to her, he just likes to take care of her. And she's like, she's never had that before. And it was just really special, really sweet. So they're at the party. She's talking with one of the women. She looks down. She sees Nas talking to some blonde woman. So she goes down there, and of course, she says, "Introduce me to your friend." And then Nas says, "This is my girl Takira." And the woman goes, "Oh, I didn't know." Like, you know. So then she tells him, she was telling him about the fact that there's like a lot of places here, I guess, to do freaky shit. And so Takira's like, "I'd like to see." And Nas is like, "We don't have to do that." And she's like, "No, it's okay. I want to go." So then they go. And when they get in there, the woman puts her hand on Nas's chest because I think she thought they were about to have a threesome. And Takira was like, "That's as far as it's going to go. Bye." So then the woman leaves and she says to him pretty much like, "I'll give you whatever you want. Like, if you want to watch another woman eat me out, I'll give it to you. If you want to fuck me in my ass, I'll give it to you. Like, whatever you want, I'll give it to you." And of course, he's like, "I just want you." And she's like, "I just want you too." They kiss and everything. And then one of the women comes to get them because they're about to do the birthday cake. Lotus gives this really heartwarming, beautiful speech to Keenan. And it makes her think about how um, she has, possibly found her person. And she feels like, you know, everything with her brother, I'm going to have to face it because what I'm feeling with Nas is very real. It's always been very real to her. It's been a couple of weeks. They've been back in LA. Her and Nas have been together every night. Either she stays at his place or he stays at hers, or they go to their separate places and pine for each other. But it's a sweet ache that they have because they know they're going to see each other again. Her sister knows about everything that's going on. She's really happy for her and tells her, you need to go ahead and tell him, Tell Cliff what's going on. Tell mom what's going on. Um, Her mom winds up giving her a call, and she's a little nervous. Her mom was calling about the whole event that they're doing for the coach, and how, Coach wants the team back there and all this type of stuff. And she decides to tell her mother um, what's going on, because her mother did express concern for Cliff, like, this might be really difficult and all this type of stuff. But then she tells her mother about Nas, and she says to her mother, I know this might be, difficult, but I'm not giving him up. I won't do it. And her mother says you shouldn't have to. If he means that much to you, then you need to go ahead and tell Cliff. And she says he'll be okay. She's like, do you think it could make him spiral? And she says, we can't live our life for him. She's like, I've been guilty of it, but he's got a lot of life left. And if he wants it, he can live it. Or if he doesn't, then he won't. And I was happy to hear that the mother was taking some accountability for her, feeding into his fuckery. I was really glad about that. I forgot, before that phone call that she had with her mother, Kanan's doing a premiere, and they were going to walk the red carpet together, and Nas was really excited to do it, but she wanted to wait until she had told Cliff about it. And so he was upset, but he was trying to be understanding of the fact that, okay, I understand she wants to tell her brother first. She doesn't want him to find out some other way. I get that. But he was mad because he was ready to, like, be able to finally, like, have her, shown as his. So after she gets off the phone with her mother, um, she is kind of like, she gets a knock on the door. It's Nas. And Nas is just kind of like, he's honest with her. He was like, I was really excited to walk the red carpet with you, you know, but you want to wait until you talk to Cliff, and I get that or whatever, but, I love you, and da-da-da-da, and he kept talking. He's like, and she was like, wait, you just going to scare us over the fact that you just said you love me? And she tells him she loves him too, and she says, now let's go to the premiere. And I'm like, yes, because you should not hold your life off for anybody, especially when it's misplaced bullshit. So Kira calls her brother, asks him how he is. He's telling her he's drawing up plans for the next season, all this type of stuff. She rips off the Band-Aid. She tells him, he was like, what Hollywood star, this and that or whatever. And she said, actually, it's somebody from your past. She says it's Nazareth Armstrong. He goes, what the fuck, of all people? That's who you open your legs to fuck? I mean, just went nasty, degrading on her. And this is exactly why I wouldn't have gave two fucks about him right there. Because your first thing to do was to attack, because again, you don't want any accountability, right? It's everybody else's fault. So now you want to say degrading shit to me because, yes, I'm dating a man that has the life you were supposed to have. No, if you were supposed to have that life, you wouldn't have been so fucking stupid. But you were stupid. And that's just it. And let's be very clear, right? You doing that type of stuff, because everyone kept him, I feel, kind of like insulated, like not telling him the truth about shit, he was gonna fuck up one way or another. Pressure was gonna get to him. Something would get to him that was gonna make him explode. So if it wasn't that day, it would have been later down the road. But it was gonna happen because he had a problem. Something was wrong with him. That's just period. So she does tell him, she hopes he can get over it. She's like, but how you're describing it, that's not how it happened. He didn't take your life away from you. That's not what happened. And he just keeps saying, can you imagine? He's living my life. He's living my life. Like, how could you do this to me? Again, making everything about him. He made a statement about he was less talented than him and all this type of stuff. But I'm like, but he was good enough to come in and he did what he was supposed to do. He rose to the occasion. On top of the fact, why were you so concerned about him? Because he kept saying, he would say that this person was gunning for his spot. Well, if he ain't no fucking good, what you really got to worry about? So it couldn't have been that he was shit, you know? So I'm just like, he's just, he's exhausting. Ugh. And so he, of course, hung up the phone on her, and he responded exactly how I expected him to respond, because he a piece of shit. We switch back to Nas. He's at the event. He's really pissed about what happened with that conversation with Takira, and Cliff on the phone. But he's not going to do anything. She asked him not to. He's been staying at a hotel. She's been staying at her parents' house. Cliff hasn't come by at all. So they get to the event. Coach gets great applause. Cliff comes. He gets big applause as well. We find out he broke like every record at that school. So he gets up there. He starts his speech, and he was saying how great his coach was, and then he says, about how coach taught him about having accountability and all this type of stuff, and basically says it, his mistakes were his mistakes. He made those decisions. And it was shocking to oh Nas, like, what? Because nobody ever thought he would ever say something like that. And so after the ceremony, Nas went up to the coach and they talked. He shook his hand. He told him, "Thank you so much for taking a chance on me, believing in me." Coach got a little choked up. He's like, "I do it for all my boys. And then he's about to walk away, and then Cliff grabs his arm and he's like, "Can I talk to you?" So at first he was thinking, this motherfucker really finna try and fight me here in front of everybody, but it wasn't. He wanted to apologize to him. He said, "I'm sorry that I've spent all this time blaming you. And to anyone that would listen, I would tell him it was your fault." He said everything that happened to me, that took my life down the road it did, were because of my choices. I did it to myself, and I'm really sorry for blaming you. And so Nas tells him, he deeply cares for his sister, but he says, if you ever talk to her like you did before, I will fuck you up. And Cliff is kind of like, she's my sister. He says, yeah, but I'm going to be a family member eventually. He's like, and again, you do it again, that's what's going to happen. And so Cliff is like, okay, cool, my bad, cool. So he asked him if he was going to come by the house, and he said he had a flight out early, so he didn't know if he could. Then he said he had a stop he had to make before he headed out. We switch back to Takira. She's at her parents' house helping her mom with the dishes. She finishes up, goes upstairs on the rooftop, gets her blanket, and she hears a voice. And she's like, "How did you get up here?" He's like, "Your mom let me up." And he says, "Go ahead, ask me how it went. So he told her about the whole accountability thing and everything that her brother said, and apparently he's been going to group therapy, and he's a lot stronger than we thought, everyone thought he was. And that's good to know, and I'm like, good for him. That's great. And he tells her that he plans to possibly be part of the family one day, and she goes, "Oh, really?" She's like, "Well, what if you can't convince me you love me enough?" He's like, "Oh, I have my ways." And then they had this really sweet, loving moment. Really just felt full circle. I can't talk. Full circle, where the very place that they fell for one another is where everyone knows about them. There's no secrets. That was beautiful. Um, she does think to herself, those 12 years she got to know herself. Probably better than she would have if she was involved maybe with someone. So she's thankful for that. She's thankful for who she became. And so she feels like maybe that is what made this an even better reunion for them. We fast forward a year. They've been living together for a few months. Cliff is actually out in LA visiting for a few weeks. He got a job interview at a private school. Nas opened the door up for him. So his ass might be moving out to LA. Him and Nas are damn near like best friends now. They're outside playing basketball. She's torn and she's ready to screw. So she yelled for him to come inside. Cliff goes to get something to eat. They have this nice hard fuck session. They like their anal play. You know, it's intense. He's big. He loves her. It's absolutely great. And they're engaged and they're super happy. It was an absolute cute, great read. Really great writing. Shout out to Kennedy Ryan. Really great writing. Again, thank you so much, Stacey Barnes, for your suggestion because I really love this. It was so incredibly sweet. It just irked me how everyone was just tiptoeing with the Cliff guy. You know what I mean? There's other stuff going on with him. It's not just that one thing. There's other crap going on with him, you know, that caused him to make the decisions that he made as well. So I was just happy that she didn't throw away an amazing person because of what I feel like a no good fucking brother. I mean, that's just my opinion of him. I just think he ain't shit. So let me know what you guys think of this book. Drop down in the comment section and let me know. If you are in the market for a beautiful notebook or journal, I do have those available, and the links are going to be available down below in the description section. If you all have any suggestions, drop down in those comments and give those to me as well. Iman Amiri, I'm looking into yours next. I really do thank you all for listening. Make sure you like and subscribe and share. As always, I truly do thank you all for your support and thank you for tuning in to the Always Reading Book Club.